Hello, I'm Stephanie Kim, coming to you from the LG Digital Studio at the Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies. In focus today, international branch campuses. I'm joined by Amol Dani, Vice President and Chief Financial Officer at Georgetown University, who also previously served as Chief Operating Officer at Georgetown University in Qatar. Welcome, Amol.
Thank you for having me.
Now, for starters, especially for those out there who might be unfamiliar with international branch campuses, could you first explain what they are?
Sure. International branch campuses, or IBCs as they have come to be known, are really outposts of the home campuses of universities. So for instance, when Georgetown University established its outpost in Qatar, it's labeled as an international branch campus. So it's a foreign land. The one thing I think people confuse international branch campuses with are franchising arrangements. And I would say that IBCs are not franchising arrangements. They are truly entities that are managed, controlled, and owned by the university in their home location. So, and there are various kinds of arrangements for international branch campuses. Some of these operate in free markets, for instance, in UAE or in Malaysia, where universities can choose to open branch campuses. Some branch campuses are opened at the invitation of a local sponsor. Typically, it's a government of the country that invites universities to start, branch campuses in their countries.
Wow, interesting. So, as I understand it, the number of international branch campuses, or IBCs, has increased tremendously in the last decade or so. Why is this happening, and how does Georgetown's campus in Qatar fit into this trend?
Right. International branch campuses are a direct response to developing human capacity in countries, that have fallen behind in the Human Development Index, countries that have typically imported skills from outside. So let's take, for example, the Gulf states in the Middle East. They are all endowed with great energy resources. One of the questions that really comes in front of the leadership in these countries is, what happens when the oil wealth dries up? What do the citizens turn to? And investing in developing human capacity was one way of framing how human capacity can be developed. So that's where universities were invited to set up branch campuses. The other reason is in some of these countries, if you think about it, women typically are either unable to or unwilling to travel to get education abroad. So setting up international branch campuses really helps meet the needs of that particular set of population. Whereas Georgetown in Qatar was established again to meet the needs of developing Qatari citizens, to bring them into the leadership fold, in the next generation. Over the last 12 years, since Georgetown has had its campus, we have graduated more than 300 students who have, worked in almost all different sectors in the economy. Some of them have even gone on to pursue graduate studies, especially doctoral studies, and we're hopeful that some of them will come back and teach at Georgetown.
That's really great. Thank you for sharing that. So then I'm curious to know specifically about the Georgetown campus in Qatar and its relationship to Georgetown's main campus here in Washington, D.C. So in an operational sense, how do they work together, and also how are they independent?
Yeah, Georgetown's campus in Qatar reports to the provost of the university here in Washington, D.C. So the Qatar campus is an integral part of the main campus, which is part of the university. The one way the campus is independent is in terms of its funding source. So the Qatar campus is funded from a grant that is given by the Qatar Foundation. So it is completely independent of funding from the main campus. So it has that independence, but in terms of its policies and procedures, the Qatar campus is no different than the main campus. It draws all of its policies and procedures from the main campus. And to the extent it needs to be adapted for local purposes, there are some adaptations that have been made so that they can be compliant with local laws and regulations. Another unique aspect of ensuring that the quality of education is the same is the recruitment of faculty. So all faculty who are recruited in Qatar are appointed by the provost, who's based in Washington, D.C. So it's very integrated from an operational perspective, but there is some independence in terms of the financial arrangements that are in play.
So a follow-up question to that. In terms of the faculty who are recruited and the students who come to the campus, where do they typically come from, and how might that be the same or different than Georgetown's campus here in Washington, D.C.?
Sure. So the one big difference is our student body is pretty global in its representation. I would say a third of the students are Qatari citizens. Roughly a third are students who have lived in Qatar but are not citizens of Qatar. They are expat families, and a third of the students are recruited globally. So we focus our recruitment efforts, what I would characterize as in the Eastern Hemisphere, but we do get the occasional student from North America or from South America or from Africa. So that's the student body. And with respect to faculty, again, our faculty are recruited globally. Most of our faculty do come from the United States because of our historical alliance and our presence in the US, but increasingly we've been hiring faculty from Europe as well.
So it really sounds like a global campus. So my next question is somewhat related to that. I mean, today we're in a very interesting political era. Some might even call it tumultuous. Here, of course, in the United States, but also all over the world. And this political climate, of course, has effects on higher education. So with that said, what do you foresee are the future trends for international branch campuses in this rapidly changing higher education landscape?
Yeah, I think there are two parts to that answer. I think the first part is just focusing on what's happening, stateside. I think stateside, recruitment of international students has become a challenge. With the changes to the immigration policies, we are finding that students are waiting for a longer period. International students are waiting for a longer period to know whether their visas are being processed. And some universities are losing out as these students then end up going to other traditional large higher education sectors like Canada or the UK. So on the home front, that's a challenge with international student recruitment. I'd say for the international branch campuses, my opinion, the future lies in collaboration. So while at the start they were invited to be independent organizations, running their businesses, I think the next wave of international branch campuses is really going to be building local capacity, which means bringing what these institutions are known for, but having some way and some means of transferring the know-how in building capacity with the local higher education institution. Now that is easier said than done. It needs a lot of collaboration, a lot of support, a lot of incentives. And I think it's a multi-decade process. It's not something that can happen over a short period of time. But I just cannot imagine that international branch campuses will remain as independent organizations in the countries in which they're serving without having some impact on local institution building.
That's really fascinating. So a lot of institution building work ahead of us.
That's right.
So thank you, Amol, for coming here today. It's been a pleasure. And thank you, everyone out there, for watching. Stay tuned for more from the LG Digital Studio at Georgetown SCS.